The scarcity effect, limited time offers. You are standing in an aisle, holding a blender you do not need. It is a nice blender, sure, but 5 minutes ago you didn't even know it existed. Now, however, your heart is racing slightly. Your palms are sweating. Why? Because a small red digital clock on a screen above the aisle is counting down, 4:59, 4:58. Next to it, a sign screams, "Only 2 left in stock." Suddenly, this blender isn't just an appliance, it is a vanishing resource. It is a survival scenario. And your brain, despite millions of years of evolution, cannot tell the difference between a shortage of food on the savannah and a shortage of mid-priced kitchenware in a department store. This is the scarcity effect, one of the oldest and most potent psychological hacks in the retail playbook. It relies on a simple, terrifying equation that your brain runs on a loop. If something is rare, it must be valuable. In 1975, psychologists Stephen Wurtzel, Jerry Lee, and Akinbi Adewale conducted a study that perfectly illustrated this glitch in our programming. They put chocolate chip cookies in 2 jars. One jar had 10 cookies, the other had only 2. The cookies were identical, same recipe, same oven, same taste, but when participants were asked to rate them, the cookies from the jar with only 2 were consistently rated as more desirable, more expensive, and tastier. The scarcity didn't change the cookie, it changed the perception of the cookie. In December, stores weaponize this. They create artificial scarcity. That limited time offer isn't usually limited by supply. It is limited by a timer controlled by a marketing algorithm. By imposing a deadline, retailers trigger a fear response, specifically FOMO, fear of missing out, which is really just a modern term for loss aversion. Kahneman and Tversky, the fathers of behavioral economics, proved that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something. The thought of missing the deal hurts more than the deal itself feels good. When you see "sale ends in 2 hours," your brain switches from logical deliberation, "Can I afford this? Do I have counter space?" to a panic state. Your analytical cortex shuts down and your amygdala takes over. You aren't buying a product anymore, you are securing a resource before a competitor, other shoppers, can take it. It is a hack that bypasses your rational financial planning and hotwires your survival instincts. You buy the blender not because you want to blend, but because you don't want to lose. The psychology of the color red in pricing. Look around any store during the holiday season. It is a sea of red. Red banners, red tags, red sale stickers. You might think this is just because red is a Christmas color, or because it stands out against white walls. But the rabbit hole goes much deeper than aesthetics. The use of red in retail is a calculated biological hack that exploits how your eyes and brain process light and color. Biologically, red is the color of urgency. In nature, red signals danger, blood, fire, or opportunity, ripe fruit. It is the color with the longest wavelength in the visible spectrum, meaning it actually appears closer to you than cool colors like blue or green, which seem to recede. When you see red, your autonomic nervous system reacts physically. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your blood pressure creates a microspike. Your blink rate changes. You are physically aroused and alerted. Retailers use this physiological arousal to kill your critical thinking skills. Studies in color psychology have shown that while blue encourages creativity and calm deliberation, red reduces analytical thinking and increases the speed and strength of reactions. When a price tag is red, you are statistically less likely to comparison shop. You are less likely to pull out your phone and check if it's cheaper on Amazon. The color itself acts as a stop sign for your skepticism and a go sign for your impulse.
There was a famous experiment where the exact same toaster was sold for the exact same price in 3 different scenarios. In scenario 1, the price tag was black. In scenario 2, the price tag was red. In scenario 3, the price was red and marked down from a higher anchor price. Men, in particular, showed a staggering susceptibility to the red price tag alone. It triggered a deal heuristic, a mental shortcut that assumes red equals value. This is why sale signs are almost never blue or green. A blue sign might make you feel calm enough to realize you don't have the money. A red sign creates a micro-emergency. It simulates a visual shout. During the holidays, stores essentially cover their interiors in alarm signals, keeping your brain in a state of high-alert stimulation where you are reacting to stimuli rather than making conscious choices. You aren't just seeing a color, you are seeing a biological command to act now.
The maze design, IKEA and supermarkets. Have you ever walked into a store for a single item, maybe just a pack of batteries or a cheap desk lamp, and found yourself 40 minutes later wandering through a section of scented candles or throw pillows you never intended to visit? You didn't get lost by accident. You were guided there. You were a rat in a meticulously designed maze, and the cheese was placed at the very end to ensure you ran past every other trap in the building. This design philosophy is often called the Gruen Effect, or the Gruen transfer, named after the Austrian architect Victor Gruen, who designed the first enclosed shopping mall in the 1950s. While Gruen actually hated what malls became, his name is forever linked to the psychological shift that happens when a store's layout purposefully disorients you. The goal is simple: to break your intentionality. When you enter a store with a linear, clear grid, you are a hunter. You know where the prey, the milk, the batteries, is. You go there, you kill it, buy it, and you leave. Retailers hate hunters. Hunters are efficient. Hunters don't impulse buy. Retailers want gatherers. They want you to meander. IKEA is the master of this. Their fixed path layout forces you to walk through approximately 100% of their catalog to reach the warehouse. The path curves every 50 feet to prevent you from seeing the exit or the next section. This curvature creates a sense of mild disorientation. You lose your bearings relative to the outside world. You lose your sense of time. This creates a state of psychological drift. Once you stop looking for the exit, you start looking at the products. Supermarkets do this too. They put the essentials, milk, eggs, bread, at the absolute back of the store, often in opposite corners. This forces you to traverse the impulse zones to get your staples. But the maze goes deeper. Notice the flooring. In department stores, the main walkways are tiled and hard, fast to walk on. But the moment you step off the main path into a clothing section, the floor becomes carpeted. It feels softer. It physically slows your walking pace. Your gait changes. You relax. And when you move slower, you look more. When you look more, you buy more. The layout is also designed to create a subtle anxiety. If I don't pick this up now, I might never find this section again. In a confusing maze, backtracking is painful. It requires cognitive effort to remember where you were. So the buy it now impulse overrides the come back later logic. You put the item in your cart not because you need it, but because you don't want to navigate the maze twice.
The anchor price. Why you see the expensive product first. You walk into a high-end electronics store. Right at the entrance, on a lit pedestal, is a massive, curved 8K television. It is magnificent. It costs $15,000. You look at it, laugh at the absurdity of the price, and shake your head. Who would pay that, you think? You keep walking. A few aisles later, you see a 4K television. It's big, it's sleek, and it costs $2,500. Suddenly, $2,500 doesn't look expensive. It looks reasonable. It looks like a steal. If you hadn't seen the $15,000 TV first, that $2,500 price tag might have shocked you. You might have thought, that's 2 months of rent. But because your brain was just primed with a massive number, the second number feels small by comparison. This is the anchoring heuristic, a cognitive bias identified by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. Your brain is terrible at evaluating the objective value of things. It can only evaluate value relatively. It needs a benchmark, an anchor, to compare everything else against. Stores manipulate the order in which you see products to set these anchors. This is why restaurant menus often list a ridiculously expensive item, a $200 Wagyu steak or a $500 bottle of wine at the very top right. They don't actually expect you to buy the $200 steak. The steak is there to make the $45 chicken dish look like a bargain. If the chicken was the first thing you saw, $45 would seem outrageous. Next to the Wagyu, it seems sensible. In December, you see this with compare at prices on tags. A sweater will have a sticker that says MSRP $120 crossed out and our price $59. The $120 is an artificial anchor. It might be a complete fiction. The sweater may never have sold for $120 anywhere in the universe. But once that number enters your visual cortex, it sets the bar. Your brain calculates the gain, $61 saved, rather than the cost, $59 spent. You walk away feeling like you made money, even though your bank account is structurally lower. This hack works even with arbitrary numbers. In one study, people were asked to write down the last 2 digits of their Social Security number and then bid on a bottle of wine. People with higher Social Security digits unknowingly bid significantly higher amounts for the wine. Their brains had anchored to the random high number they just wrote down. Retailers know this. They surround you with high numbers, high original prices, high-value luxury items on display, so that when you finally pick up the mid-range item, your brain sighs of relief at how cheap it is. Slow music to make you walk slowly. Silence is the enemy of retail. If a store is silent, you become self-conscious. You hear your own footsteps. You hear the hum of the HVAC system. You feel exposed and you want to leave. But they can't just play any music. The playlist in a successful retail store is as carefully engineered as the architecture. In 1982, a researcher named Ronald Milliman conducted a landmark study on background music in supermarkets. He played fast-tempo music on some days and slow-tempo music on others. The results were undeniable. On days with fast music, shoppers moved quickly through the aisles. They walked briskly, grabbed what they needed, and left. On days with slow-tempo music, specifically music with a beat slower than the average human resting heart rate, around 60 to 72 beats per minute, sales increased by 38%. 38% just by slowing down the song. This works through a process called entrainment. Your brain and body have a natural tendency to synchronize with external rhythms. It's why you tap your foot to a beat without thinking. When the environment has a slow, loping rhythm, your gait subconsciously adjusts to match it. You physically walk slower. When you walk slower, your dwell time increases. You spend more seconds in front of each shelf. You notice items you would have blurred past at a brisk walk. Retailers want to maximize dwell time because there is a direct correlation between how long you stay in a store and how much you spend. But it gets more specific. During the holidays, stores don't just play slow music, they play nostalgic music. White Christmas, Jingle Bells, the slow versions, the crooners from the 1950s. This triggers mental time travel. Nostalgia is a potent emotion that lowers price sensitivity. When you are feeling warm, fuzzy, and connected to your childhood memories of Christmas past, you're less worried about the $20 price tag on a scented candle. You aren't buying a candle, you are buying a feeling. Conversely, have you noticed that fast food restaurants play fast, frantic jazz or pop music? They want the opposite. They want high turnover. They want you to eat fast and get out so they can seat the next customer. But the department store wants you in a trance. They want you moving through molasses, synced to a slow ballad, drifting aimlessly toward the checkout with a cart full of things you didn't see coming.
Eye level is buy level. It is the oldest cliché in retail because it is true. But the extent to which this space is monetized and manipulated is something most shoppers never consider. You assume that the products on the shelf are arranged by category, or maybe by popularity. In reality, the shelf is a rented billboard. Big brands pay slotting fees, essentially rent, to supermarkets and big box stores to secure that prime real estate right at your eye line, typically about 5 feet off the ground. The difference in sales between a product at eye level and a product on the bottom shelf can be monumental. A simple move from the bottom shelf to eye level can increase sales by over 60%. Why? Because humans are cognitively lazy. We are cognitive misers, meaning we try to conserve mental energy whenever possible. Bending down to look at the bottom shelf requires physical effort. Looking up requires neck movement. Scanning the shelf right in front of your face requires zero friction. In a store with 40,000 items, your brain is suffering from massive decision fatigue. It wants to pick the easiest option. The product at eye level is the path of least resistance. But here is the darker twist. Eye level changes depending on who the target is. Go to the cereal aisle. Look at the adult healthy cereals, the bran flakes, the granola. They are usually near the top. Now look for the sugary cereals with the cartoon mascots, the ones that are essentially candy. They are positioned lower. Why? Because that is eye level for a child sitting in a shopping cart or walking beside their parent. This is engineered to trigger the nag factor. The store wants your child to make eye contact with the cartoon tiger. They want the child to grab the box or point at it and scream. By the time you're in the cereal aisle, you're likely tired. You just want to finish the shop. When your kid starts begging for the sugar bombs, you're more likely to just throw them in the cart to buy silence. The shelf layout weaponizes your own exhaustion and your child's lack of impulse control against your wallet. Even the end caps, the displays at the end of the aisles, are sold to the highest bidder. Products on end caps sell up to 400% better than products in the aisle. You assume items are there because they're special or on sale. Usually, they're just there because a corporation paid a premium to interrupt your visual field before you even turned the corner. The dopamine of anticipation, buying versus owning. We often think we shop because we want the thing. We think we want the new coat because it will keep us warm, or the new gadget because it will make our lives easier. But neuroscience tells a different story. We shop because the act of shopping gets us high. When you see an item you want and you reach out to take it, or you click Add to Cart, your brain is flooded with dopamine. But here is the critical distinction. Dopamine is not the pleasure molecule. That is a common myth. Dopamine is the anticipation molecule. It is the chemical of wanting, not liking. Stanford neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky has done extensive work on this. In studies, if you signal a reward to a monkey, like a light turning on, and then give the reward, juice, 10 seconds later, the dopamine spike happens when the light turns on, during the anticipation. When the monkey actually drinks the juice, dopamine levels drop. Retailers are in the business of maximizing that anticipation gap. Online shopping is the ultimate dopamine engine because it separates the purchase from the receipt by days. The moment you click Buy, you get the spike. Then you get a tracking number, another spike. Out for delivery, another spike. The package arrives, another spike. By the time you actually open the box and hold the item, the chemical rush is already fading. The liking part, the serotonin and endorphins of actually owning the object, is often much weaker and shorter-lived than the dopamine rush of the hunt. The store manipulates this by creating an environment of endless possibility.
The beautifully lit displays, the unboxing experience of high-end products, the promise that this purchase will finally optimize your life, it is all designed to stimulate the seeking system in your brain. This is why retail therapy works in the short term but fails in the long term. You're medicating stress with dopamine. But because dopamine is about the pursuit, the satisfaction evaporates almost the moment the transaction is complete. You are left with a sweater you don't really need and a brain that is already scanning the horizon for the next hit of anticipation. The store hasn't sold you a product, they have sold you a temporary neurochemical event.
Buyer's regret and how to avoid it. You get home, you unpack the bags, the adrenaline of the mall has faded, the slow music is gone, the red signs are gone. You look at the pile of things on your table, the scarcity effect blender, the eye-level cereal, the impulse buy candle, and you feel a sinking sensation in your stomach. Why did I buy all this? This is buyer's remorse, known in psychology as post-purchase dissonance. It is a form of cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort experienced when your actions, spending too much money, conflict with your beliefs. I am a responsible person who saves money. Retailers know this happens, and they have one final trick to stop you from returning the items. They try to rush you into rationalization. This is why return policies are often strict or convoluted. Store credit only, restocking fee, must have original packaging. They want to make the act of reversing the decision painful enough that your brain chooses the path of least resistance, convincing yourself you actually wanted the item. Your brain is incredibly good at rewriting history to protect your ego. It's called choice supportive bias. Once you have made a choice, your brain immediately starts inventing reasons why it was the right choice. Well, I really did need a backup blender. Or, this candle will be a great emergency gift for someone. You retroactively assign value to the product to align your reality with your behavior. So, how do you hack your brain back? How do you defend against an industry that employs PhD psychologists to empty your wallet? The most effective defense is friction. Retailers spend billions removing friction. One-click ordering, Apple Pay, saved credit cards. You need to add it back in. The 24-hour rule. Never buy anything non-essential on the first visit. Force a cooling-off period. This allows the dopamine spike to crash. If you still want it 24 hours later, when your prefrontal cortex, the logic center, is back in charge, it might be a genuine need. Break the entrainment. Wear headphones with your own music. Play something fast or a podcast. Do not let their playlist set your heartbeat. The stranger test. Imagine a stranger is standing in front of you. In one hand, they have the item. In the other, they have the cash value of that item. Which would you take? If you take the cash, put the item back. Shop the perimeter. In grocery stores, the real food, produce, meat, dairy, is on the walls. The maze in the middle is full of processed, high-margin junk designed to trigger eye-level impulse buys. Stay on the edges. Your brain is a miraculous machine, but it is running on software updated 50,000 years ago. Retailers are hackers exploiting those zero-day vulnerabilities. Understanding the glitch is the only way to patch the system.